Hi, my name is Alex Dudley, and I'm here today to talk to you about hydration. So before I get into what hydration is and into the subject matter, the reason I chose this topic is because hydration is so important for just bodily function. Everyday life as you know it wouldn't be possible without maintaining appropriate hydration status. Secondly, there are huge athletic performance implications in regards to hydration. So that's why I chose it. What is hydration? Well, hydration refers to fluid and liquid. More specifically in this context, it refers to any liquid substance that provides water to the body. Derek Zoolander has his own opinion on that, but I'll leave that to you to watch. So what is fluid? Liquid is a state of matter. So fluid is a liquid substance that moves freely and maintains the shape of its container. The healthy adult human body is 50 to 70% body weight fluid. There are some factors that affect that: age, weight, and gender. Typically speaking, the older you are, the less percent of body weight is fluid. That's why I like to think that old people are wrinkly. There are two types of fluids: intracellular, which refers to fluid inside your cell walls. This accounts for about 2/3 of the total amount of body weight fluid. And then secondly, there's extracellular fluid, which is fluid outside your cell walls. This accounts for the other 1/3, and this can be further broken down into two subgroups. The first one is tissue and interstitial fluid. This refers to fluid that accounts for your muscles, your organs, etc., the fluid content of those. The second type is intravascular fluid, which refers to blood, lymph, any fluid inside vessels and ducts, essentially. So, fluid composition. Fluid is made up in your body anyways of three primary things: water, proteins, and electrolytes. The first two are pretty self-explanatory. Electrolytes are mineral salts that are dissolved in water into either positive or negatively charged ions. They're able to carry an electrical current. There are four main types of electrolytes. The first two are extracellular, so they're outside your cell wall, and that is sodium and chloride. Sodium carries a positive charge, chloride a negative charge. The other two are intracellular, so they're inside your cell walls. That refers to potassium with a positive charge and phosphate with a negative charge. These are the four main types. There are other electrolytes in your body, but these are the ones I'm focusing on and certainly play some pretty significant roles. So what are the functions of fluids? There are four main functions of fluids. The first one is it dissolves and transports substances. Water is a solvent, which means it's able to dissolve substances, because blood is mainly water, blood acts as a method of transportation for these dissolved solutes. These solutes can include amino acids, glucose, vitamins, minerals, medications, etc. It's pretty important. Keep that in the back of your head because I'm going to refer to that again. Second function of fluids is it accounts for blood volume. What blood volume is, essentially, is the amount of fluid in your blood. The increase of blood volume, you can have an increase of blood pressure, and a decrease of blood volume, decrease in blood pressure. This is also pretty important. The third function of fluids is it maintains body temperature. Water has a very high capacity for heat. It takes a lot of energy to increase the temperature of water. So because of this, fluid acts as the primary coolant for your body. Now, the body is cooled in two main ways. The first way is when you're exercising or doing whatever to increase your body temperature. The fluid from the core of your body, which tends to be the hottest, moves to your peripheral appendages, your arms, your legs, etc., and more specifically to the vessels directly under your skin. Now, the second method, or the second part of this, is that your sweat glands secrete more sweat onto your skin. The sweat is then evaporated into the air, and this process cools the skin and the vessels directly under the skin. So now you have this cooler fluid in your appendages, which then are moved back to your core, cooling your core down. And then the fourth function of fluids is it protects and lubricates tissues. This is pretty self-explanatory. All the organs in the center of your body are suspended in fluid, keeps them where they're supposed to be. So there are a couple functions of electrolytes. The first one is it helps regulate fluid balance. Before I get into this, I'm going to ask my wife Holly back here, what are some ways that fluids are entered into your body?
You can eat, drinking, and your body can also metabolize them.
That's right. So you consume fluids by consuming water, eating fruits and vegetables, other foods with fluid content, and your body metabolizes about 10 to 14% of your total weight of fluid. So in regards to maintaining fluid balance, you also excrete fluids. Holly, can you tell me some ways fluids are excreted from your body?
Basically any bodily function, peeing, puking, pooping, sweating, bleeding. Those are all ways you can get rid of fluid.
That's a pretty graphic way of summing it up, but that's correct. So cell membranes are not freely permeable to electrolytes. That means they just can't pass from intracellular to extracellular back and forth. So water moves to where solutes are higher concentrated until the point that the concentration on either side of the cell membrane is equal. This process is referred to osmosis. And this is what's essentially regulates fluid balance. Like I said, the electrolytes, extremely important. So water moves back and forth, and that essentially changes your fluid volume. Second function of electrolytes is it enables nerves to respond to stimulus. So when you receive a stimulus of sorts, there's a change in your cell membrane, and this allows an increase of sodium into the cell. And since sodium is positively charged, it causes the cell to become less negatively charged. This creates an electrical impulse which then travels along the cell membrane. This process is referred to as depolarization. So the electrical impulse then stops when the cell releases potassium into outside of the membrane, which is referred to as repolarization. And how it responds to stimuli directly relates to the third function of electrolytes, which is signaling muscles to contract. So you have a stimulus, you get a nerve cell that's been stimulated, it started this electrical impulse that I previously just mentioned. Your muscle fiber gets stimulated by the electrical impulse. This causes the muscle to increase the flow of calcium into the muscle fiber or into the from the extracellular space, which allows the muscle to contract. The muscle then finishes its contraction when the electrical impulse stops and the calcium has been pumped out of the muscle fiber. So this is so incredibly important. Just think about, look at me standing here moving my hands and my mouth and speaking. That's muscle contractions. But the most important muscle in your body is your heart. If it's not pumping, you're not alive. End of story. And electrolytes, especially potassium, plays a huge role in heart function, which I'm about to get into. So hydration risks. There are some health concerns related to hydration. First and foremost, dehydration. And what that refers to is a depletion of body fluids. It's when you excrete more than you intake. There are two main ways of being able to know how dehydrated you are, or measure your dehydration. First is the color and amount of urine. So I have a nice chart here showing some light pale urine, some dark urine. The lighter and more urine you put out, the better hydrated you are. The less and darkly colored urine you put out, the more dehydrated you are. Second way of measuring dehydration is to weigh yourself, whether it be before and after a physical event or at the beginning of the morning, end of night, etc. The amount of body weight you've lost, that is percentage of body weight lost is fluid loss. So there are some symptoms that you can know how much percentage of body weight you've lost. So, from 1 to 2% decrease in body weight, you're going to be thirsty, uncomfortable, loss of appetite. From 3 to 5% decrease in body weight of fluids, you're going to have nausea, flushed skin, lack of concentration. And then anything greater than 8% body weight fluid loss, delirium, muscle spasms, and inevitably or eventually death if not left treated. Like I said, it's extremely important to maintain hydration status. So your body has a couple response mechanisms to prevent this from happening. So your body responds to an increase of sodium levels, a decrease in blood volume or blood pressure, and dryness in your throat and mouth. So the first mechanism that kicks in is the thirst mechanism. It's pretty self-explanatory. Your mouth gets dry, your throat dry, the thirst mechanism kicks in, and you say, oh, I'm thirsty, I want a drink of water, or whatever it may be. The second system that kicks in is called ADH, and that refers to antidiuretic hormone. A diuretic is any substance that allows your body to excrete more fluids. It's used medically to dehydrate you if your concentration levels of electrolytes are off, or etc. And what it does is, so ADH is the opposite of a diuretic. It allows your kidneys to reabsorb water. A kind of gross example that I'll share with you in regards to that is, I'm a firefighter, and I can't tell you how many times our tones have gone off for calls and I have to pee. And I just don't have time. When you hear a dispatcher saying structure fire, you don't have time to say, oh wait, let me pee first. You throw on your bunker gear, you get in the truck, and you go. You get to the fire, it's easily 700 degrees Fahrenheit, if not hotter. You're wearing 50 to 70 pounds of gear, and you're working crazy hard. It takes only like 2 to 5 minutes in that environment for me not to have to pee anymore. And I come out of that fire after, let's say, 15-20 minutes, switch out my oxygen tanks. I'll drink 2 to 3 bottles of water, and I still don't have to pee, because that's how dehydrated I am. But that's an example of ADH kicking in. I had to pee, my body sensed I was dehydrated, ADH kicked in, I don't have to pee anymore because my kidneys have reabsorbed that water. Sorry for sharing that with you, but it's a great example. And then the third mechanism is called the renin-angiotensin system, and this constricts your blood vessels. This is a response to a decrease in blood volume and blood pressure. If blood pressure is low, you make that vessel smaller by constricting it. The pressure in that vessel is now higher. And there are 4 kind of main illnesses or risks associated with the concentration of electrolytes. The first one is called hypernatremia, and what that refers to is an increase of sodium in your body, a concentration of sodium in your body. And a symptom of this is edema. Sodium allows you to retain fluid. So if you have too much sodium in your body's retaining too much fluid, and you become puffy and swollen. That's what edema is. The opposite of that is hyponatremia, which is too little concentration of sodium in your body. This can lead to headaches, dizziness, fatigue, nausea, vomiting, muscle spasms and cramps, and if left untreated, seizures, coma, or death. Very important to maintain those proper concentrations of electrolytes. Now, same thing referring to potassium, you have hyperkalemia, which is too much concentration of potassium in your body. This leads to abnormal heart rhythms. I mentioned already that potassium plays a vital role in heart function. An abnormal heart rhythm can lead to heart attack and death. There isn't a huge amount of wiggle room with your potassium concentrations, so being hyperkalemic is very fatal and has to be treated immediately. The opposite of that is hypokalemia, which is too little potassium in your body, and that can lead to confusion, loss of appetite, muscle weakness, and as well fatal changes in your heart, leading to possible death. So that is some of the many reasons why proper hydration and ensuring that your electrolyte balance is correct is extremely important. So kind of moving away from the health risks, I'm going to just talk a little about hydration and athletic performance. And I'm sure this is going to be important to all of us because we're all here to be PFTs. So first and foremost, dehydration is the most common dietary cause of poor athletic performance. It's been shown that as little as a 2% decrease in body weight of fluid can lead to an 11% decrease in VO2 max. If you don't know what VO2 max is, it's the maximum volume of oxygen your body is able to deliver. It is an important indicator of your ability to exercise effectively and transport oxygen throughout your body under a maximum amount of stress. So being dehydrated 2% and losing 11% VO2 max, that's huge. I also mentioned that your blood volume can decrease if not properly hydrated. Well, your blood carries things like glucose, which I already mentioned. Glucose is the primary source of fuel for aerobic events. So if you're working out and you're not hydrated, your blood volume decreases. You're now no longer able to transport as much or as effectively glucose throughout your body. Your endurance is going to take a direct hit. It's also been shown that dehydration has direct implications on your ability to produce torque in exercise muscles. And what that means is if you're biking or running, the muscles that are being exercised, the ones in your legs or what have you, loses the ability to be as effective. Torque is that power output from the muscle. So you lose torque, you're not effective, your performance is going to decline. Also, when you're exercising, you have a prolonged sweating. So this leads to your dump in electrolytes. And I've already talked about the importance of electrolytes and maintaining their balance. So you don't want to dilute your concentrations of potassium, for example, and have a heart attack and die. It's pretty extreme, but I suppose it can happen. Dehydration also compromises your central nervous system and your cognitive ability. It's been shown that the blood-brain barrier becomes compromised during dehydration, and this essentially stops certain things from getting into your brain and certain things from coming out to your brain, or things that need to be there and aren't there. I mentioned that some symptoms of dehydration include lack of concentration or confusion, and that's what this relates to. You need to be focused and concentrated when performing at any athletic event. So that kind of explains itself. There are also some other factors that affect dehydration or hydration status. Those are heat, altitude, and humidity. So you take any one of those that increase your dehydration and add it with exercise, you're going to have some more athletic performance issues. Specifically, an increase in heat and an increase of exercise leads to an increased strain on your cardiovascular and your thermoregulatory systems. This means your VO2 max is going to be affected, and your body isn't properly able to cool itself. Hypothermia or hyperthermia, they're both fatal and need to be treated immediately and are extremely serious. So being able to control that is extremely important. Ultimately, the most important point of athletic performance in dehydration or hydration status is you cannot rehydrate yourself during an athletic event. If you are dehydrated already, it's too late. You can drink as much water as you want or whatever. You are not able to become hydrated again. So the key here is prevention. You need to be properly hydrated going into that event and then maintain that hydration state throughout the event. And that gets into my next point of some hydration recommendations. There are three, before I get into the priorities of hydrating during athletic performance, I'll explain the DRIs for water intake. So your daily recommended intakes for adults ages 15 to 90, males is 3.7 liters, and females is 2.7 liters a day. This works out to about 9 to 13 cups of water. This is a guideline, not a strict rule. Every person is different and has different hydration needs, but it's a good idea to know how much water you should be drinking. That's without exercise. That is just every person, every day, generally. So when it comes to exercise, there are three priorities for hydration. First one is water, second one is carbohydrates, third is electrolytes. So if you're exercising for anywhere an hour or less, you need to focus on hydrating with water or replacing water loss. If you're working out for more than an hour but less than 3, you should be focusing on replacing water and carbohydrates. Like I mentioned, carbs, glucose, it's a source of fuel. Anything greater than 3 hours, like an ultra marathon or a marathon, triathlon, anything like that, you need water with electrolytes, because 3 hours or more of sweating, you're losing tons of electrolytes. There's also a bit of a hydration schedule here. I'll explain to you what the recommended replacement schedule is for water. So 2 hours pre-exercise, you should be looking at consuming 600 milliliters of water. 15 to 30 minutes pre-exercise, you should be looking at consuming 250 to 500 milliliters of water. During exercise, you should be consuming 90 to 150 milliliters of water, and this refers to every 15 to 30 minutes of exercise. And finally, post-exercise, you should be consuming 600 milliliters of water. Like I said, This is water. Yeah, after you work out, you're going to have your recovery choice. You know, it might be chocolate milk, it might be a protein shake. Those things are great, but that's not hydrating you. That's serving another purpose. That's dealing with your electrolytes or your protein or your carbs. You know, those are general recovery. You still need to hydrate. So you still need to be consuming water on top of those other recovery drinks of choices. So, and this kind of leads me into some hydration tips. There are a lot of hydration products on the market, supplements, like I mentioned. You know, you might want a protein shake or some chocolate milk or whatever have you after an athletic event. Water is so important, just consuming water. If you feel you need something to help you hydrate, there are a lot of supplements out there. You know, I have a few up here, some of these tabs and such. Use your discretion when buying these. Read the label, see what else is in there. You know, a lot of them might have high amounts of sugar. You don't need that, and it's certainly not good for you. So take a look, read the label, and make sure that what you're consuming is actually meeting the needs you have after exercise. I mentioned you should be drinking a lot throughout the day, 9 to 13 cups of water. I know that it's kind of boring. There are some options out there. Flavored water, again, make sure it's not anything with, you know, you got that Mio squirt and stuff. Watch the sugar concentration of that. A great option is putting just fruit or vegetables in your water. There are these great cups, these little fruit diffusers. I've got part of a grapefruit in here. Twist it, it's like a little zester, and it flavors my water. It tastes like grapefruit. It's awesome. It keeps me a little more entertained than just plain water. So at the end of the day, my tip to you is hydrate frequently, hydrate lots, especially if you're working out or doing any forms of exercise, and just use caution when using supplements. Thank you. Oh, before I turn this off here, I just wanted to introduce you to Jackson. He says thank you for all the support and help for the last 2 months while he's been in the hospital and allowing me to be there with him. So thank you very much.